All right, let's get into this week's 5 matchups to watch. Eagles and Steelers. The Steelers team has not played a particularly good schedule, but their defense has been pretty good. Ben Roethlisberger has played very well. So let's get the matchups to watch. KC Joyner, thefootballscientist.com, NFL Insider right now here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. He appears via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. KC, you look at this Steelers team. Let's start with that. I mean, are you buying into this early 3-0 start from them? Or, I mean, they beat the Giants, they beat the Broncos, and they beat the 0-4 Texans.
I'm buying into it just because they pick their spots when to play really well, and when they decide they want to play really well, they're playing as well as any team in the league. But they've Tomlined for a quarter, as the famous Tomlining thing where they play down to their talent level. They'll do that for a quarter each game, maybe a half, but otherwise they'll play to their level, and they're being able to win because they played to their talent level the other times. But if they keep doing this, it is going to catch up to them.
You look at what they do defensively. They have the second most sacks in the league behind the Eagles, 3-4 look from them. How do you like that matchup with Jordan Mailata, Nate Herbig, Jason Kelsey, Matt Pryor, and Lane Johnson up against their front seven?
I think they can hold up talent-wise, believe it or not. I think they can do it because the Eagles are only allowing pass pressure rate on 22% of their passes. I think it's 14th in the league. It's right around the middle, so they're doing well enough there. But the Steelers, they lead the league by far in blitz percentage. So what they're going to do is not just try and beat you with talent, but they're going to try and beat you because you're not sure where their people are coming from. So the problem with the Eagles is that because you have so much change in the offensive line, are you going to communicate properly to be able to stop that kind of thing? So that's the thing that worries me more than a talent situation.
Yeah, and you got Mailata making just his second start, having to go up against Bud Dupree. I mean, that should be something to watch there. I thought Mailata held his own for his first ever NFL start the other night, but this is a different challenge than the one he saw against San Francisco.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, the Steelers, they predicate everything on their defense on getting a pass rush. They're going to, if we get a rush, if we rush 4 when we get there, great. If not, we're going to rush 5. They're saying we are absolutely going to get a pass rush. It's going to afford some opportunities, though, because if they can't hold up the way they did last week, and San Francisco is not exactly a bad team pass rushing-wise, even with the defensive line issues. They're still getting a good solid rush, but if they can hold up, that will afford some opportunities downfield because the Steelers, when they're putting that kind of blitz pressure, are leaving their guys in man coverage, and they've got aggressive safety, so you can hit the occasional big play against them, like what happened last week for Philadelphia when they beat the 49ers in coverage on that one pass to against Dante
Fulgham.
Johnson.
I'd forget his name too, right? Yeah, Fulgham.
I remember Dante Johnson who he threw against more than I did Fulgham. So
let's go down that road because Alshon Jeffrey out again, Deshaun Jackson out again. No weapons, really. Fulgham, Greg Ward, Hightower, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Is that going to be enough against this Steelers secondary?
I think that they're going to be able to beat, I'll put it this way, Joe Hayden, according to Pro Football Reference, Joe Hayden's allowing 9 yards per target. For a cornerback, you want that number to be between 5, 6, maybe 7 yards. You don't want to allow 9 yards per target. And Steven Nelson, their other starting cornerback, he's allowing 8.5 yards per target, but he's allowed 3 touchdown passes. And Mike Hilton, their really good nickel corner, he's allowed a touchdown pass as well. So these guys will give up big plays, and you can run 9 routes on them. It's, again, they're going in, if you're blitzing like this, you don't have to do anything creative or extra special. You just say go somebody over the top if they get a cornerback who's being just a little too aggressive. So I think the Eagles have top-line speed enough in their secondary to be able to hit a big player. It's not going to be a lot like last week. They only threw 2 verticals, but they got one of them completed for a touchdown. That's what they can do in this contest, maybe hit a play or 2 for a big gain.
What about Ertz? They have not been able to get him going. Is the tight end in play against this Steelers defense?
That tight end is sort of in play against this Steelers defense. I mean, they've got Fitzpatrick and Edmonds. Edmonds is technically their strong safety. They're both kind of listed as safeties. They'll switch them up in the box. I think they viewed their safeties as kind of interchangeable. They both allowed 9.6 and 9.8 yards per target between them. They've allowed almost 200, in fact, just over 250 yards in completions against them. So there are some big plays to be had. And if you're blitzing that much, I don't know how much extra coverage you can give to stop the tight end, because a lot of teams have been putting up, I've mentioned earlier in interviews, the teams are sometimes putting as many as 3 people stopping Ertz. I don't think the Steelers will do that. So I think this could be a game where Ertz, if he doesn't have a dominant game, I think he's going to play better than he has.
The Eagles have more sacks than anybody else in the league. Should sacks be available against Pittsburgh?
Sacks should be available against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is not a terrific pass blocking team. They are allowing pass pressure rate on 25% of passes, which is like the 10th highest. It's like 22nd in the league. So there are plays to be had, and they are a team that when they do try to go, and they do try and pass, they do try to go vertical. Problem for the Eagles is that when the Steelers do go vertical, they are hitting big plays, especially to Chase Claypool. He's that rookie wide receiver from Notre Dame. He's a phenom athletically. He just didn't have a lot of experience and such, but they've hit one vertical pass to him in every game so far this year. So the Eagles, they need to get that pass rush because otherwise they're going to try and hit a pass to Claypool, and I think against the Eagles secondary they'll be able to do it.
All right, what about getting the run game going? Is that available this week? You know, you got the 3-4 front from Pittsburgh. Miles Sanders, they kind of used him. I mean, but they got away from him in the fourth quarter. It seemed like they didn't trust him there. But can yards be had on the ground against Pittsburgh?
Teams really haven't tried to do it against Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh is sort of like their defense is sort of like when you're facing the Eagles. They're so aggressive that you're just not going to be able to get percentage rushing plays against them. But I think it's the same thing. The Steelers rush defense is kind of like the Eagles, where you're not going to get consistent run blocking against them. You're never going to get a high good blocking rate. It's just not going to happen. But again, you can get big plays, and their safeties are so aggressive too that they can get out of position. And if that's the case, you can hit a big play and not have a safety back. Then you could turn what should be a 10, 15-yard run into a 50, 60-yard run. So I think that's kind of what the Eagles need to be making their game plan for us. How do we do traps and quick hitters, things of that nature that might be able to catch the blitz, catch the Steelers in a blitz and make them pay for it. And I think if they do that, they can hit a couple of big plays in the ground.
All right, they got Juju and Deontay, and obviously Roethlisberger is back. Eagles, obviously, they've added Slay. You've moved Mills back to corner for at least the time being here. Rodney McLeod. Do you like the Eagles' secondary, or is that an area where Big Ben can kind of pick on?
It's going to be interesting to see what they do because you mentioned Juju. They've had 7 completions or penalties drawn on vertical passes have the Steelers, on passes from 15 or more yards downfield. And of those, none of them have gone to Juju. 3 have gone to Claypool, 2 are to Ebron, I think one's to Washington and one's to Deontay Johnson. They haven't completed one vertical pass to Juju. I have a feeling they'll try to change that in this contest, and I bet it'd be against Slay. So Slay's going to be a guy I would bet they would target, and again, they need to find a way to stop Claypool because Claypool is just a phenom of a receiver, but he only goes on the vertical routes. He's not really going to do anything short, so I think maybe the Eagles need to say, fine, you can go to vertical passes, we're going to make you go to short passes because he hasn't shown he can do that on a consistent basis yet.
All right, we'll get Casey's take and pick on this game coming up here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Right now, we're going to get one thought on every game in week number 5 as we go around the league. Let's start with last night as Foles gets the better of Brady again. What is the deal with that Buccaneers team? How do we start reading into them? 3-2. Bears are now 4-1.
The Bears' defense, it says really more about their defense than it does about the Bucs' offense. I expected the Bears' defense to be able to slow people down. I was telling fantasy managers, don't really try and play Brady. Don't think of him as a QB2 in 2 QB leagues because they're just that good. So I think it says more about them. But also, the Bucs need to get healthy. You can't keep rotating receivers in and out and have people in and out of the lineup like that and expect the pass game to get going. And Gronk is just old. So I think the Bucs will get better once they get healthy.
All right, let's look at the slate for the day. It's a Rams, Washington football team, 3-1 L.A., 1-3 Washington football team. Kyle Allen will be the starting quarterback there. Rams have feasted on the NFC East.
They have. What worries me about the Rams is their offense last week, 15 first downs, 58 rushing yards, 240 total offensive yards against the Giants. I think the Giants' defense is probably better than people think, but it also says something the Rams' offense is kind of struggling. They can't seem to find a running back because they want to concentrate around. But Washington's allowed 30-plus points in 3 straight games, and their offense is having some big problems. I think quarterback change may help them there, but I still think the Rams are pretty confident picking this one.
All right, the Cardinals and the Jets. This game is kind of in limbo with the Jets situation here, but Cardinals have been disappointing the last couple of weeks. They look like a team on the rise. Jets are going to go with Joe Flacco.
Yeah, Jets going to go with Joe Flacco. And the Cardinals, you're right, they have been a very much of a disappointment. You would think that they posted last week their lowest offensive yards total since week 13 of last season. Their defense, though, has been the real big problem. Over the last 2 weeks, 766 offensive yards allowed and 52 first downs. That's just insane. But the Jets have Joe Flacco. I just think that offense is going to take a step back, and they're not going to be able to take advantage of that Cardinals defense in the same way. So I'm picking the Cardinals.
All right, Raiders 2-2, Chiefs 4-0. The Chiefs, obviously, everybody's favorite to win it right now. Raiders, they lost at home last week. They looked good the first couple of weeks, but kind of falling back to earth here. Tough spot against a Chiefs team in Kansas City.
Yeah, they got an offensive line injury. Their top tackle is hurt, so it looks like it's going to be a problem for them. They've got 370 offensive yards in 4 straight contest issues, so the Raiders' offense is holding up, and they're 10th in points per game, and they faced quality defenses. So they can turn this game into a shootout. The problem is that they've given up 6 turnovers in the past 3 weeks. Their defense ranks 27th in a metric called defensive expected points added, so they're just not a good defense. And they haven't won at Kansas City since 2012, so I don't think that changes this week.
Jaguars won opening week, lost 3 straight since. Texans haven't won at all. They fired their coach. Romeo Crennel is going to be in. This offense has been a mess without DeAndre Hopkins. Do they finally get their first win of 2020?
I worry about Houston's defense, 162 yards per game to opposing running backs. That's just running backs. That's not including scrambles. It's just against running backs. They've got the worst defensive expected points added this year, so their defense is terrible, and I think Jacksonville can get the ground game going. The thing I'm concerned about this game, though, is does a coaching change make the players step up? Sometimes the players are going to get a new coach and say, hey, we need to play harder for him than we did for the old guys. So I think that might be a situation for them. So I'm picking Jacksonville, but I bet it's going to be a real close game because the Texans are going to play better.
All right, Bengals finally win a game. They're 1-2-1 after a long, long losing streak, but they're facing the Ravens now. So it seems like it doesn't look like a 2-game streak's coming here.
It doesn't. I'll bet Burrow is able to keep it closer than expected, though. I mean, they got 500 offensive yards last week. That's in your 4th NFL start to lead an offense to 500 yards. That's pretty darn good. I'm picking Burrow right now for Offensive Rookie of the Year for the first quarter of the season. But the Bengals have allowed 150 rush yards in 3 out of 4 games this year. I just don't think they're going to be able to stop the Ravens offense. Even if Jackson doesn't throw the ball that much because of the knee injury and the illness, I think the Ravens are a pretty comfortable pick.
All right, Carolina's 2-2, but somehow they're an underdog in this game against the Falcons, whose defense is horrendous. They can put points on the board, though, but is it enough to get their first win in the division against Carolina?
People just don't know how good Carolina is. They just somehow have this idea that this is a struggling team, and they're not. Their defense is playing much better. Atlanta's posted fewer than 300 net passing yards in 3 straight games. I mean, their offensive, their receiver injuries are killing them. Jones is still banged up. I know Ridley's supposed to play, but he did nothing last week. I think between Mike Davis and the way that defense is playing, I think Carolina's a pretty comfortable pick here.
Let's go to Miami and San Francisco. 49ers, we know, are banged up. They're going to get Garoppolo back here. Dolphins lost last week at home. It was close for a while, and then Seattle kind of pulled away from them. But now Miami's got to travel all the way across the country to play the Niners, who are coming off that loss to Philadelphia. So San Francisco looks to be in a good spot here.
I would agree with Garoppolo back, and you've got the running core back, and you've got Samuel back, and you've got Kittle playing at his level, and they're going to be very motivated to wipe out that loss last week. I think they should have won that game. And plus, when Fitzpatrick is playing well, it's Fitzmagic. When he isn't, he's really bad. And they give you an idea how bad he's playing. They were considering benching him this week and decided to stay with him. It's like if they're thinking of benching him, it says it's where he is, and I think the 49ers are going to take advantage of that.
All right, by the way, KC Joyner here, thefootballscientist.com. Make sure you check that out at KC Joyner TFS on Twitter as we go around the league. One thought every game here at the Giants and the Cowboys. Historically awful defense. The Giants are awful as an offensive team. So what gives in this one?
I think, again, the Giants' defense is playing better than people expect, and to do what they did against the Rams a week speaks well. But, the Cowboys, they hadn't allowed – they've been playing football since 1960. They hadn't allowed 300 or more rushing yards in any contest in that time frame. So when you do it the first time in 60 years, that shows how bad you're playing. But I think the Giants' defense will play better, but, okay, then that evens out for bad offense versus bad defense. But the Cowboys have a great passing game, and the Giants just don't. So I'm picking the Cowboys.
Colts are up next. You mentioned last week you thought they might have the best defense, or maybe Monday, that they have the best defense in the league. Browns scored 49 last week against the worst defense. So how do you see the Browns for an encore against this Colts defense?
I may end up changing this pick if the injuries keep going like this, but the Colts just lost Darius Leonard for this week. He's their stud corner or linebacker, and he's one of the top-notch player. And they have depth on their defense, but still to lose him is a big issue. The Browns are getting 204.5 yards per game on the ground, so I think they're going to be able to move the ball well. But I still think the Colts, because their defense is still that good even without Leonard, I think they're going to win, but I'd probably give a confidence level 1, probably a true toss-up.
All right, next up we got the Vikings 1-3, very disappointing. This is the Sunday night game. Seahawks are undefeated 4-0. Their defense is a little bit of an issue too. You keep thinking the Vikings aren't as bad as they look, but every week they seem to look bad. But Seahawks have looked really good offensively, but is this the week their defense plays a factor here?
Their defense allowed 415 offensive yards last week against Miami, and it was a season low for them. That was the best they put up the whole season, 415 allowed against Miami. Seattle, with Russell Wilson playing the way that he is, Minnesota can turn this into a shootout. They've racked up 30-plus points in 3 games this year, so they can make it that way, and I think it will be a shootout contest. And you know what I'm fond of saying, that shootouts are 50-50 propositions, even for the best offensive league history. So I'll go with Seattle on this one. Probably give it a confidence level of 3, though. It's going to be a real close game, I think.
That's your Sunday night game. You can hear it right here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, we'll have the Eagles and the Steelers at 1 o'clock, and then following that, we'll have the Giants and the Cowboys all right here on 97.3 ESPN. Got a double dip on Monday, Broncos, Patriots, Chargers, Saints, and then a Tuesday game with the Bills and the Titans. So we'll preview those matchups when Casey's back on Monday's show right here on the Sports Bash Live. He'll give us one thought on every Week 5 matchup. He gave us one thought and a preview of every game this Sunday. And let's get your take. Who wins the Eagles and Steelers, and why?
I think it's going to be something like last week, in that there's only a couple of paths to victory for the Eagles, and I think they have the capacity to hit some of the big plays. And if Pittsburgh plays down to the Eagles' talent level for a quarter or two, this could be a much closer game than expected. But we're still talking the best defense in the league, and we're talking a passing game that's playing really well, and we're talking a very healthy Steelers team versus a banged-up Eagles team. So I'm probably going to go the Steelers in this one.
All right, KC Joyner, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. He likes the Steelers to beat the Eagles in a close one. And, of course, you can hear that game, 97.3 ESPN. Mel Reese, Mike Quick, the coverage begins at 1 p.m. Casey, have a great weekend, man.
Appreciate it, man. You too.